Hey, what's up, anime fans? This is your boy, Raysean from the Raysean Gadson Anime Podcast, or RGAP for short. And on today's episode, we're interviewing voice actor Sean Letourneau from the popular anime Windbreaker. He's also known for BLUELOCK, My Hero Academia, and Remastered. We're going to be asking him about his experience in voice acting and also about his personal life and how you can get into the industry. But before I introduce my guest, if that has sparked your interest, then sit back and enjoy the ride. And don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you listen.
I don't give a rat's ass about you. If you truly want our help, you owe us complete honesty. Unless you want me to remove your head from your shoulders. You will have all your hidden archers lower their bows immediately.
Seems you escaped death, kid, for today. I hope you learned your lesson for next time.
Shut up! This magic, does it come from demon genes? It's quite fascinating. However, the flesh that gives us life is that of dragons. Please forgive me for leaving the table without having eaten.
Don't be in such a hurry. She's quite the lonely woman, you know. Why not spend some more time together? I'm Cyrus Rivermore, 5th year here, and if you prefer it, I can look after you instead.
Before we get started, I just want to allow my guest the opportunity to introduce themselves. Tell everyone where you're from, also what you do, and also tell us your favorite character that isn't a human.
Hey guys, my name is Sean Letourneau. Just a voice actor / actor from Dallas, Texas. Born and raised. Been doing this for a long time, having a great time. And I would say this is more of a recent one from what I can think of, but probably Fel or Fenrir, depending on what you call it, from Campfire Cooking in Another World, which is a little isekai. It's voiced by Jonah Scott in the dub, who's so good. He's also in Beastars if you ever watched that, but I think that's a really fun character. So that's probably my top pick right now.
Okay, that was a good pick. I picked 3 picks. It's funny because when I was thinking about it, it stumped me for a little bit. Then I just had to go with my original favorite character, which is Goku. Isn't a human. He is an alien.
Technically, yeah.
I went with Rimuru from Reincarnation of a Slime, and also Gapta. I think Gapta is a pretty cool character, even though he's more like a side character in that anime, but I think he's pretty cool.
Yeah, those are great picks. I didn't even think about the Goku one. That's very clever. I would have totally gone for that if I thought about that. I guess he's technically not a human.
Man, it took me a second to think about it. And it's funny because on my podcast, instead of doing like voice actor interviews, I'm also doing a Dragon Ball marathon. So it just took me a while for it to click for some reason, which is so funny. And then I was like, oh, this is super easy. Before we kind of get into the nitty gritty, going into all the questions and everything, I just kind of want to ask you, is there any anime right now that you're keeping up with or any manga that you're reading?
I'm trying to keep up a lot with, I'm like a big, like shonen hungry. I like people with cool powers and cool dudes beating people. I know it's like so generic, but that's what I really enjoy. So the current 3, I guess 4 actually, things that are going on is Chainsaw Man, of course, Kaiju number 8. I really like Hell's Paradise. Hell's Paradise is so cool. And then I like BLUELOCK a lot. I've been watching a lot and reading a lot of BLUELOCK. And I feel like I'm emotionally invested in the development of BLUELOCK because I have so many friends who also love it. And also I have some people I know who are in it. And so I like always try to read the issues and see what happens with them because it's like watching, I don't know, it's like when you read a manga and you know people who are in the show as those characters, it's almost like you're rooting for your friends. It's really weird. So, but those are my big 4 right now.
Hell's Paradise is amazing. I remember watching that and I feel like out of every anime that's recently come out, that was probably one that really, to me, had a twist to it where you couldn't really tell what was going to happen. You kind of got the feel like in the beginning that, okay, they're taking these prisoners to this new island and everything, and they're kind of ruthless. But I mean, when this island turns into like this crazy magical place where these 10-foot monsters are coming out of everywhere, it's like, oh my God. It makes you think like the first group of people they sent were just regular people. Like, how the fuck did they even make it off that island? Like,
yeah, how do they even know anything about it? So it's a fun concept too for me because it sort of playing with the idea of like, oh, it's this forbidden paradise where, you know, we could possibly gain immortality or powers, and it's we're sending like death row inmates essentially to this island to find it. And there's a lot of weird political greed, and there's a lot of high fantasy involved, but it's sort of playing with that human aspect of trying to attain something we shouldn't be trying to attain, like living forever. And there's like this greed to it, like pushing people to go in there and capture it. And then you see the horrors of the island and like how it eviscerates people. I feel like I'm very artsy fartsy. I like abstract stuff, or I love like A24 films. And so I feel like there's these subtle themes that are more metaphorical in the show, on top of it being just visually really, really appealing, and a lot of good action too. So it's a nice blend. I really like that show. I can't wait. There's going to be a season 2 guaranteed, no way. So I can't wait till that comes out.
I think another good pick you chose was Kaiju number 8. I'm glad that you picked it because I haven't really gotten a chance to talk about this because I just recently watched it, I think 2 days ago, and I literally binged it. It is probably one of my favorite anime right now. I'm glad I'm kind of getting more out of the age group where I'm kind of getting to my early 30s. I'm still in my like 20s, but I'm getting up to my early 30s, but finally getting up to that point to see older main characters in these storylines, and they actually are doing pretty good and everything. And I just love the whole action and the whole storyline so far. And can't wait to see what the next few episodes is going to be. And kind of sad that hopefully it be more than 12 episodes, because I'm like, damn, we're already at episode 10.
It's getting intense too. You know, it's starting to fall apart. And the villain design's so cool. The art design's so cool. And sort of like to what you said, it's been really fun watching newer shows where I feel like a lot of the characters are starting to be like in their 20s and 30s, as opposed. I mean, there's still plenty of anime where it's like, you know, they're like 15, even though they look like they're like 24 and they're jacked.
Yeah.
But you know, that's like it's always about a high school. It's like these high school students need to save the world. Which is fine, but it's nice to see some mainstream stuff. Yeah. Showing some older protagonists and the characters. I think it's maybe a little bit of self-awareness from studios and manga writers realizing like a lot of the people who grew up loving this stuff have grown up. And so watching a medium sort of grow with you is cool. It's kind of like Pokemon. I feel like sometimes they've added features in like Sword and Shield and newer games where they kind of know that like this is, you know, pretty appealing to young people, but we know that a lot of our audience that's like the OGs that played that, like me or you, like we're getting like our mid-late 30s or early 30s or mid-late 20s, early 30s. And so there's this really broad spectrum of people to appeal to. So it's been cool. And it's funny. Like Kaiju's very, very funny.
Oh.
Same with the other one I'm looking at, like Chainsaw Man is another fun blend of like, it's really gritty and dark, but it's also very comedic. And I feel like it's kind of self-aware that it's comedic. Like it has moments to where it doesn't take itself too seriously.
I also like that you pick Blue Lock, because I've been also watching a lot of sports anime, but I've been watching Haikyuu. But I've also been getting up to the new movie that's about to come up for Blue Lock. I think it's Nagi, the new Nagi movie, which I can't wait to see, because when I watched Blue Lock, that was actually my favorite character throughout the whole thing. So I was like, oh, it's interesting that they went that route of making a movie with him. So I wonder if it's the consensus that he was like the most popular. But the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because I just recently watched a new Haikyuu movie, and I don't know if you've seen that or if you're a fan of Haikyuu.
I haven't gotten into Haikyuu yet. I've heard a lot about it, but I might look into it, because I didn't think I'd like sports anime. I haven't really watched any, and then I kind of started watching and reading Blue Lock because of friends, and then I ended up really liking it. So I think I need to be a little more open-minded and check it out. I haven't tried Haikyuu.
See, Blue Lock is an interesting one because it's like some sports anime where it's like they are more realistic kind of to the sport. And then it's like some anime where it's like they kind of make it a little bit more entertaining, where you're like, I don't know if a real soccer player, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's
like moving at the speed of light.
But it's like, it's still entertaining, where I feel like Haikyuu is a little more to the sport. But it do have moments where it's like, okay, this is a little, I don't know if someone can physically do this, but I feel like when you're watching Blue Lock, you're getting more of an entertainment value out of it, if you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's. What did somebody say once? I forgot what they said. They said Blue Lock is soccer, like how Dragon Ball Z is MMA or mixed martial arts or something like that. Where it's like, it's kind of about this, like this is like their power or whatever. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, it's anime big time. So like everyone's got these cool, you know, integrated powers and like secret techniques and stuff like that.
True.
And he's talking about, like, I'm going to devour him. And then they, you know, do all these crazy stuff where I'm like, oh, his strategy is this. It's almost like a game or like there's certain classes with skills and like, I don't know. I know what you mean. It's fun. I like it a lot.
Yeah. I like the anime a lot too. I like the whole aspect that they're going after ego, like ego being the main driven force of where they get their power. Is so interesting to me, and how they go back to like American players from different eras and stuff. Basically, like, oh, this person did this because you know what, they had this strong ego. You're like, oh, okay, yeah. that's what that
like
is.
Their aura. So it's like their mana, and then there's like Metavision. That well, I guess if people haven't read it yet, I'm not going to say who, but there's a character later that also has Metavision, as opposed to the main character. And, it's just, you know, that's like so anime superpower. Like they can almost see the whole game and exactly what's about to happen. Like they have, like they're clairvoyant before it even happens.
Man, what, to the point where you start to think like, why would you, if you were just a random soccer player, like the first episode when you had that one guy that gets eliminated, which I guess they hyped him up to be like a great player and everything. But then you see like all these other people going in there with all these crazy abilities. You're like, damn, maybe I should have been happy I got eliminated.
I think, dude, I should be an accountant. Screw this.
This is
I'm done.
Well, all right, kind of going back into our interview, today's episode. We're going to be diving into the world of voice acting, learning more about the behind the scenes and how you can get into voice acting, while also learning and celebrating the career of Sean. For my first question, I want to ask you, what made you want to pursue a career in voice acting, and were you afraid of the new challenge?
Well, I'll answer that backwards, second and then first. Absolutely, I was afraid. I feel like I'm not always the biggest risk taker in life, but this was something I thought was worth taking the risk for. So, but it's definitely scary. But it's just what I wanted to do. Why I wanted to do it was I was actually homeschooled pretty much my whole life. And, but I had like a fake co-op. It was called a co-op. It was like a community thing. Every Friday, it was like fake public school with other homeschoolers in the area. It was very weird. So it was like 7 a.m. to like 1 p.m. or whatever. It was kind of like high school-ish. I did it through middle school, high school, every Friday. So it's fake public school. They had like theater program. They had sports, all this other stuff. And I was like 10 or 11 years old and I didn't have a ton of friends and I was pretty shy. And then my mother just threw me into a musical theater class that I didn't want to take. And she's like, you know, just make some friends. And I remember doing it. I can't remember the first show I ever did, but I think it was like an announcer or like a tree or something. But I didn't really love it. But I did make friends. And then over time, I kept going because my friends were in musical theater. And then I started to really, really like performing and being on stage. I was always like the funny kid. I was just shy. And I slowly started becoming less shy. And then I realized by the time I was in high school, I don't think I really, you know, I was very bitter and jaded in high school. So I was like, I don't care about all these people. I was like, but I do like acting. And so I kept doing theater and I started getting like lead roles. And then I started to think I really wanted to do it for a career, but I didn't love, singing. I didn't think I was like the best singer in the world. And, I didn't really want to move to California because I knew it was really expensive. And like, again, that's a big risk. I'm like, well, how do I be an actor if I don't do those two things? And then I thought about like, well, I watch anime all the time. I love like Disney, Pixar, animated films, video games. And I think around this time, Critical Role started coming out. I'm pretty sure it's been that long ago. And it was all voice actors. I'm like, that's so cool. They're having so much fun. They're so cool. And I'm like, maybe I could do that. Maybe I could be a voice actor because, they could do it. And I recognize those people. And so I started to pursue it. And I took some classes in Dallas and Texas. And just slowly built my way to where I am now. But basically, I could thank my mom for like forcing me to take a musical theater class when I was in middle school for where I am today, because it really did make me build a love and appreciation for performance.
That's amazing. Kind of going back to the school thing. Did y'all go to a random school to meet up, or like the park or something? Like,
no, it was weird. It was like, so it was called March, which was McKinney, which McKinney is just like a small town in, DFW. McKinney area, like Christian homeschool, I think was what the acronym is for. And my family wasn't like super religious, but my mom was like Christian enough for her to see it say Christian homeschool. And she was like, okay. And just pick it. So it was like one family that I think had a decent amount of money and like a ranch. They would rent out this huge church building on Friday in the morning. And then so you had like a tuition. It was kind of like normal school. Like the parents, you paid for some stuff. And every semester you signed up for classes. And then you would go, and it was all just like volunteer based. So all of the moms and some dads of the homeschooled kids would help and basically be the staff. And the reason there was like even a theater program or PE or whatever is because there were parents who, directed community theaters or, had like a dietitian's degree or master's or whatever. So they're going to do like the physical education and stuff like that. So it was really weird. It was all community based. Because all these people, I guess, just collectively agreed they wanted to do it for their kids. So it was really cool. It was definitely not like the most normal batch of kids. No shade to homeschoolers, but, I am glad I went. I think it helped me be a lot more sociable. I think a lot of times in public, I'll tell people like, yeah, I was homeschooled my whole life. And everybody always goes like, really? And it's never like oh, that's cool. It's always like, what, really? But you're like, normal. I'm like, oh, thanks.
well, because, sometimes you get those impression that, they're like introvert. They don't do they like, don't do anything type of people. But, they're just same as us. They just learn a different way. And the way that, you basically explain that is actually pretty cool for a community to come together like that and have school like that. And probably, I feel like you could learn more in an environment like that, especially if all these people have different degrees and masters in their fields and they're coming out and helping. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was neat. It was definitely, it definitely helped a lot. I'm making it sound like it's kind of this like Amish community where we're all like, milking cows and eating bread from the land. But it was, it's just a once a week sort of thing where you did most of your school at home with your mom or whatever. And then you're like, oh, Friday's coming up. And then you get to like role play as a high schooler, basically. But it was nice. I think I learned a lot doing that. If I didn't go to that, I think I would have been a much different person. And I don't think I would be, honestly, I don't think I'd be an actor. So, shout out mom.
Shout out mom. Well, my next question basically is, what do you find most challenging about being a voice actor?
That's a good question. Probably doubt. I think everybody has different ways of getting into a character and styles of performing. And there is a subjectivity to art and to to acting, but the real challenge is not the work. It's when you're trying to get work. And people say imposter syndrome a lot. That's like the term you've interviewed other voice actors. I bet you've heard it like 1,000 times, but it's true. You know, it's just I think the biggest challenge is to just know that if you keep going, something's going to happen. And, you know, if you're not booking anything right now, it might not be because it's not because you're bad. It's just because that role's not for you, or it was just not the right time. And so the willpower to keep going and keep trying to get better without being hard on yourself and like doubting yourself, I think is the biggest challenge. And same goes for any, you know, artist. Like if you're a painter, if you play guitar, whatever it is, it's like your whole career basically relies on people thinking that you're good enough to pay attention to. And so when you have those moments where you're not getting any work and no one's paying attention to you, it's easy to fall into that thought process of like, oh my God, like I suck. It's not good enough. Nothing's going to happen. Like, I'm a fraud. So I think that's the biggest challenge, but it's all a mental game. So
when you have moments like that, how do you get yourself out of that funk?
I think back on the things I have already done. And when I was a kid, I thought about like, I would entertain the idea of doing this. And I'd be watching like Angel Beats on the original Funimation website. You know, I would not be able to believe that what I've done now already back then as a kid. I'd be like so blown away. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm so cool. I can't believe I've done that and this and that. And so that helps, because I think when you're an actor, you always book something and then you look for like the next big thing. Like I would get like my first role ever at Crunchyroll on like in an anime. And then I'm really excited for a minute. But then in my head, I'm like, oh, now I need to do this next milestone. And so you're always looking ahead. It's very rare that we stop and look back. So I think stopping and looking back helps a lot, because I'm like, well, I've already done a lot. And my logic has always been like, if I can book those things that I've already booked, then like, surely I'm not nobody.
I feel you. So you most likely gonna get something in the future.
Yeah. And I think it's like, you have to realize if you've done stuff before, you know, it's not a fluke. It's not like I messed up and people just like off of pure luck have booked me this many times now. Like maybe once, sure, but it's like I've done multiple things. And so it's that mentality helps. And then honestly, other than that, if I'm not going to do like that really sentimental thing, I just get really nihilistic and I'm just like, nothing matters. It doesn't matter. Maybe I do suck. Maybe I don't. Whatever. Just do the audition, actor boy. Like whatever. And I just go for it. And then sometimes I book it and I'm like, oh, okay, well, all right, that worked out. Cool. I guess I am an actor. So
that's interesting, because the way you just said that kind of reminded me of when I was listening to this podcast with Bill Burr. He mentioned that he doesn't take anything that he does and make it like a big thing. He just acts like it's a normal job. Like, I just come in there and make these people laugh. They get babysitters, and after that, I just go. And then I think to myself, like, this man is probably one of the top 3 greatest comedians of all time, but he never takes the time to actually just be like, you know what, I am one of those top 3 big comedians. Which I think sometimes you probably have to have that, so you don't get too beside yourself and into your head and think you more than what you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I love that. I totally agree with that. Bill Burr is awesome. I think he's genuinely my favorite comedian. So I'm glad you mentioned him. I've been up to like 4 a.m. so many nights, like watching all of the Conan O'Brien talk show YouTube clips of him on his talk show, because he's always hilarious on that. But yeah, but it's definitely a balance of I like Bill's philosophy there of like, it's just a job. I'm not that big of a deal, because I think that will help you take criticism more. And I think it's important for you not to have a big ego. Speaking of BLUELOCK, haha. And, because at the end of the day, I'm still just a dude. I would hate to ever have that moment where I'm like, yeah, like I am super important. Like, yeah, I was in this show. You know what I mean? Like, I would always want to avoid that. But, like you're saying, you can have that, like, oh, I'm not that big of a deal, just a guy mentality, but you should probably balance that with, you could still have some pride with the things you've accomplished and give yourself some credit, because you're right. It's important to give yourself that, and so you don't, fall into a mental rut. I think it's a tug of war of like being humble, but recognizing when you do a good job.
Yeah, taking a moment to actually realize that, okay, this is what I got to, you know what I mean? But I can understand the other aspect of that too.
Absolutely.
The main reason I brought you on because I wanted to talk about your experience on the anime remaster. I wanted to basically ask you, were you surprised about how popular that anime is right now? And also, do you have any favorite moments? And how did this opportunity come about?
Yeah, those are good. So I am surprised at how popular it is. I guess, I mean, when you say that, I almost want to ask you, like, how popular is it? Because I do watch the show, which is maybe is cringe, but I do watch the show after I record it because, it's like the fruits of your labor, it's like you work on an episode all week and then the next week it comes out and I want to just sit there and see the final product, I think that's cool. But I try to stay away from looking into it too much as far as like the feedback and how everything going on. Like I'll read like the Crunchyroll comments and stuff, but I've had a lot of people tell me like, dude, that's a really popular show. And I'm like, is it? Like, oh, that's really good. So it does surprise me. I try not to worry too much about that stuff because I don't want to get it in my head too much, but very, very surprising. Some favorite moments from the show so far. Hold on, let me double check how many episodes are currently on air so I don't
think it's 10.
Say something that gets me fired. Hold on. 10? Okay.
I think we just transformed, I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. I love the bear fight in episode 2.
That was amazing.
I just like my work on it. I'm proud of how that sounds. I like that it's more, there's actually like a struggle. I feel like there's high stakes. The music is cool. My buddy William voices the bear, which I think is fun. So I really like that scene. I think the Dryad scene with like the super boner is fun. I think that's funny.
That's fun.
And I really enjoy action. So the scene where we're fighting skeletons in the cavern is really fun. And again, hold on. This is the longest answer ever. But let me just.
You could talk about the anime you in, man. Go ahead.
Double check. Okay. Yeah, I really do like a lot of the earlier scenes with the struggle with the power hierarchy, like when I beat up a goblin and spare the girls in the earlier episodes, or when I tell people like to not mess with like the elven women, or there's a power struggle between me and some of the other goblins who want to leave and stuff like that. I think that's a fun theme of the show, of like, he's a monster, but his past life he wasn't. So there's this sort of conflict of like, you guys need a little bit more of a civilized structure. And changing like the whole dynamic of the world of like, oh, the goblins are just like stupid monsters. to like, no, like we're basically just another, normal structured civilization of people. It's like a different species. I really like those scenes. So just basically anything where I get to beat the hell out of somebody or any scene that is really sweet and intimate. I like those a lot.
What about the bird scene? That seemed like that was the only fight where he actually looked like he was going to lose for real, for real.
Oh yeah, the bird. The bird's cool. The bird's cool. I wish there was a little bit more. I wish it was a little longer, but I think the bird scene was cool. I like the fight with Filippo, the bone bug brave too. I think that's neat. That one, it kind of alludes to like I was pretty close to dying. That was fun, and then he just runs away butt naked. And that's kind of funny. And fun fact, people, Justin Briner voices Filippo. He's Deku from My Hero. So
wow, okay. That's
I don't know if anybody knew that, but like when I was doing my takes in the booth, I heard him and I'm like, it just sounds like Deku's just talking to me. I'm like, this is so freaking weird. So that was fun to record. But
did you actually get to run into him, or?
I've seen him. I'll be honest. I never bumped into him. I've seen him in the studio like twice, but he was talking to somebody. And I am one of those people where I'm like, I don't want to bother him. I don't want to bother him. And so I just keep walking. But in my head, I'm like, oh my God, that was Justin Briner. I know who that is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's probably exactly how I feel. Cause I would hate to like interrupt someone, but you'd be like, oh man, if I could just get 10, 20 minutes just to talk to you.
Yeah, exactly.
To see how you felt about certain lines and moments and stuff. But for Remonster, I have to basically say some of those things that you talked about are some of my favorite scenes too. I mean, the scene where he fights the bear is probably one of the most hype moments in the whole anime so far, because I mean, I feel like that was the only fight you really get a whole fleshed out fight, and you get a nice transformation at the end of it. So it's like he gets the fruits from his labor of that. And what I kind of also like is the aspect of the rivalry between him and Gobro. I can never get all their names right.
I think of Gobkichi's like the
Gobkichi. Yep.
Is the big buff one.
I like their little rivalry and everything, and to the point to where he ended up transforming into some big old red ogre. And I can't remember the qualification of because I know he turned into an ogre, but I can't remember the qualification of what ogre he is. But I like that whole rivalry to the point where he's like, you know what, I got to get up there with you. Other than those other goblins, that's basically like, okay, you guys are just, you're getting too strong. You know, it's no point for us even here anymore. We need to go ahead and leave. And I do like that scene where you do have him basically stop the guy from raping the hostages that they have, and basically tying him up and leaving him to die, basically showing that he's the leader and everything. So I thought that was interesting. But the whole fact that you have the older generation have to listen to the newer generation, you can understand why there would be like conflict between that, especially when one wants to change our whole way of doing things that y'all been doing prior to before. So that's pretty cool. And the fact that he's pretty much a Chad character, which is so cool. You got to give it props. I mean, literally every woman that's in that village is pretty much his, which is so cool. You got to give him props for that. Which to the point he can leave there and go get a dryad too. So it's like, how popular are we going to make this character? And which I think is funny because I'm sorry, just to cut you off a little bit, but you jump into episode 10 and now he's like a father to the two randomest people where I feel like you never really even see him have as much contact with them two versus the other women in this group. So I thought that was interesting. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, me and the director have so many questions sometimes. Absolutely, because like it's a crazy show. A lot happens. It's kind of hard to keep track. So Dami, who is she's the Dampier variant. She's the sort of like light blue, white haired goblin girl with the glasses. She's got like the ice magic. She is, probably the closest to Oguro. And if you remember, there's a scene where we wipe out like an army And then she's like, oh, I'm all worked up. Like, I want to have your baby because of that. Like, damn, that was sexy, you know? And, I would have thought right then and there, like, oh, this is where the kids come into play. Cause I knew that eventually in the show, we were going to have kids, or Ogura would have children. And then we record episode 10. It's the two twins. I'm like, well, why them? What, them first? I mean, it doesn't surprise me that they had babies, but like the fact that they were first, I was like, okay, like whatever you say, that blows me away. So I feel the same way. I feel the same way.
Going on to my next question is basically kind of a similar type of question. You also played in one of my top 10 favorite animes, which is My Hero Academia, which is funny because you brought up the Deku character in your last answer, which is pretty cool. How was the experience working on that? And were you a fan of superheroes before that anime project?
Absolutely. I grew up, you know, with Spider-Man bed sheets and a Spider-Man t-shirt, and I was obsessed over Spider-Man, Batman, and Iron Man. And I love superhero films and all that stuff going on with just everything. And I watched My Hero a lot. It was one of the first big dub performances I feel like I watched, other than a few, like earlier when I was really young, in high school. Because that's how long it's been going on. I was in high school, where I watched the dub and I was like, this is so good. I want to do this. And so going into the studio, to record for the show was probably I was probably the most nervous I've ever been, recording for anything there when I was recording that. I started off playing some unnamed little extras in a couple episodes, and I was just really nervous. But Colleen Clinkenbeard, the director, who's also the voice for Luffy from One Piece, which was another reason why I was nervous, was really sweet. We had a really fun time, and she was so nice and she was cool. And I kept coming back every now and then to do a couple extras. Again, they were unnamed. And then right at the end of season 6, I play this character that people now know about, Wedge, who's one of the pilots that helps Star and Stripe. And I just had one line at the end of the last episode of season 6 that's teasing this new season. And it was so cool because then I got to come back this season, those first 2 episodes, and my character's on screen. And also, again, my friend William is one of the bro pilots of the group, and just to be in the show and be in the fight with Shigaraki and stuff, it was so cool. It was very fulfilling. Very surreal. That's how I would describe it.
That's pretty dope. Being able to see something in high school and then being able to play in that same anime that you liked, it's fucking phenomenal. It's something that I kind of wanted to do too, but ever since Akira Toriyama died, I don't know if that's going to be as possible, but I'm still hoping that Dragon Ball keeps continuing and keeps going. So, yeah.
I think it will. In some fashion.
Yeah, I'm praying. My Hero, I mean, it's My Hero. The manga's sort of towards its end. I don't know, because a lot of people say it might keep going because it seemed like they're developing more stuff, even though it's kind of the end of the manga. But it just depends, because the manga is amazing, and I would hate for it to end, because that's one thing I feel like I do hate nowadays, more or less, because now we're getting more to the era of where manga are actually ending, and it's like, dang. Because now you can't imagine what more story there could be. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think it's coming to a close, or it ought to. I've definitely gotten my fix, and the themes and the messages trying to convey, I feel like have already been shown. And it just feels good where it is right now to end. If it ended really soon, it would just feel good. So I agree. I do think there'd probably be good spinoffs and stuff though. Like there's the what is it called? There's like a My Hero Academia, not Rivals, but there's maybe it's Rookies. There's like a spin-off series manga that they're doing that they might want to adapt into an anime too, and that would be cool. Because I'm totally fine with stuff like in that world. I think the quirks and just like little superpowers and stuff like that is so fun. But as far as like Deku's story and everybody, like the main villains and heroes, like I think it's, if it ends, I'd be like, yeah, that's fine. That makes sense.
Okay. What emotions do you find it hard to portray?
I think this sounds maybe weird to some people, and maybe this is something wrong with me, but I think like being overly enthusiastic or positive, not laughing per se, like I can laugh, but when a character is like, yeah, absolutely, like that's great, that sounds so exciting or whatever, I feel like I sometimes struggle to make that sound super genuine. Not always, but I think it's just because like I need a lot more context to make that sound good than if a character is like angry or crying. And I feel like maybe because those are a lot more intense emotions, and so it's easier just to lean into it and make the anger or the sadness sound real. And also because maybe I'm just like an angry person and like I'm like, oh, I can relate to that. Like, oh, I get to scream today. Like, oh yes, I can't wait. Where it's like, today you're going to be a character who's really happy and positive all the time, and life is good. And I'm like, life is always good. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of
experience with that.
Yeah, I'm like a negative Nancy sometimes. So maybe I find it easier to relate to like the negative emotions than the positive emotions. So I think like, yeah, so being like overly positive or giddy and happy is kind of hard for me sometimes, which I don't think is what most people say, but that's my answer.
Which is interesting because I feel like this question has given me so many different answers. One of the answers that always gets me and that I remember is laughter. They were basically saying just randomly just laughing is one of the hardest things to just do. And it just made me think, like, if you have no context to what you're laughing at and you just see something that says laugh, I can see why that would just be hard to just do out of nowhere. But being spontaneous and like cheerful, I can see how that could be hard too, especially if you're not normally like that on the basically everyday type of thing.
Yeah, I'm a pretty like generally goofy guy. Like in everyday life, I'm like this kind of louder. I'm pretty outgoing, but I'm just very like sarcastic, and
okay.
I kind of like, you mentioned Bill Burr before. It's kind of like a Bill Burr thing. Like I would never be the one to be like, oh gosh, like the sun is out today. What a beautiful day. I would never say that. I'd probably be like, well, finally, it's sunny out. You know what I mean? Like that's the way I'd probably portray the same message. So, yeah. I mean, I could get into character and I could do it, but I need you to give me some before I get there.
Well, my next question is: there anyone you will want to shout out for being a good support system for you? And can you explain why having a good support system is important?
Yeah, I have a lot. I have.
Go ahead, give them to me.
So just like my family, like my mother and my brother, and I've been crazy, and like all of my close friends who aren't like public figures or like actors and stuff like that. I have a bunch of childhood friends and stuff. So I would say that as a general blanket term, they have always really, really supported me, through everything, and almost to like an annoying fault, because I think one of my favorite ways like to motivate me is spite. It's like proving someone wrong, right? It's having someone go like, you're never going to make it. And then it just really makes you want to go for it so you can prove them wrong. I love that form of motivation. It really gets me going, but I've never had that for this because all of my friends and family have never said that. I've never had anybody say that. Everyone's always been so supportive. I've even had it to a point where it's like, I've told someone like, I want to be a voice actor. And they go like, yeah, totally. Okay. Like, you probably could do that. You got it. And there's no like, oh, are you sure? Or like, wow, like that's pretty risky. It's like, everyone I've known has always just been like, yeah, man, that makes sense.
Funny. It's like, you're like, dang, can you just rain on my parade a little bit?
I'm like, yeah, can you like just try to tell me it's about it? Like just try and prove me wrong or something. As for like people who are out in the know, Sean Gann and Caitlin Glass are two directors who, have been really sweet and Jonathan Rigg, that are at Crunchyroll. They're involved in anime and like theater, have helped me a lot and been really supportive, especially in this journey. And when I had some, pretty severe health issues, I had a GoFundMe and they were all very, very generous, which was overwhelmingly nice. So shouts out to them.
I hope you.
I've had actors like Tom Henry, Alex Hom, Devon Oliver. I'm gonna forget people, which is gonna kill me, but just know that I didn't forget you. It's just, in the moment, right? Trying to think of the name. But I have a lot of great people that I know in the sort of Dallas acting circle who I've known for a really long time and are really kind and supportive. And, I've even had people like text me and check up on me when I'm like really busy and I haven't reached out to them in a long time, and all that stuff, means a lot. And to your other part of the question of like, how important is that? I mean, I think it is crucial because, especially the modern day voice actor, you spend a lot of time, at home. A lot of it is remote. Almost all of it is remote. And so it can be actually pretty lonely because, a lot of it's recorded separately. So you're also not even on call with another actor usually. So you're just by yourself in like a dark, dank vocal booth recording. And as we were talking about earlier, you can get into those bad headspaces and start to doubt yourself or worry or get stressed. And, if you don't have a good support system around you to sort of nudge you back out of that, if you don't have good methods to get yourself out of it on your own volition, it's pretty easy to spiral. I mean, I've seen people on social media before talk about taking like really long breaks or like, I think I'm going to quit, man. I can't do this anymore. Because they are just alone, for a moment or two and they have those bad thoughts and they get stuck in them. So it's very, very important. I've been incredibly blessed my entire life to have a whole family and friends and like co-actors and just people that's been overwhelmingly nice to me. And if anyone has not been nice to me, I am blissfully unaware. So, I'm really lucky. I think it's very important and I'm very blessed.
As of right now, which vocal performance would you consider your best?
Oh man. Honestly, I don't even know how I want to say this. I do probably. I'll give you. I'll say this. I'll say anime. Honestly, I think Set from Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts. Okay. So he's the main villain in that show. It's a long title. Particularly the last, like, if you watch like the first or second time like episodes where he shows up, that character shows up, and then you watch like the very last episode of the show, just a difference in the character's voice and the performance that thankfully Jonathan Rigg, the director, let me play around with, is just so fun and so amazing. It's very Handsome Jack, or like for Borderlands, or Scar from Lion King, where they're very composed and sort of cocky and like, I'm already going to win. I know my plan. And then the very end of the show, obviously everything falls apart because the villain has to lose. And as he's losing, he just completely loses that like posh composure, and that gentlemanly behavior. And you realize he's just like a bratty, psychopathic, selfish kid. You know, he's having a temper tantrum. And I love those characters. And I feel like I did a good job. So that's my favorite. I really like Reed Monster. I like Gabro, Ogro, whatever you want to call him. It's been really fun. I feel like a lot of the times I don't have to come too far out of like just my natural voice and how I would say a sentence, basically. Which has been fun. It makes it very easy to perform the character. But I think part of the challenge of doing Set from Sacrificial Princess, and it paying off is what makes me really like that character. He's also really cool. He looks like an Egyptian god. Like he's like a dog with pharaoh's clothes on and stuff. It's super cool. So, I just really like that character. I have a crush on that character, basically. I think it's cool.
I would,
So, yeah.
what you saying that I would say that your voice does sound very similar to Gaburo from the anime. Y'all don't sound that much different.
It probably would be weird. I always wonder about that with like, because sometimes actors sound, you know, depending on the character they play. I have some characters where I sound nothing like them, but there's some actors where their natural speaking voice is nothing like their characters, but some of them it's like you just sound like it sounds like this character is speaking to me. It doesn't sound any different, you know.
True.
I always wonder if anyone I've ever spoken to feels that way, like they haven't met me yet and they watch the show and then I'm like, hey man, I'm Sean, how's it going? And they're just like, what the? This is weird.
You
like you're
sound
popping
just
out
like
of the
this
screen.
anime character.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, go figure.
Do you think voice actors get enough credit?
I think, I don't know. I feel like I do. Personally, I'll speak personally for myself. I think, for the most part, maybe. How do I phrase this? I think they get enough credit, but I think the people who are critical don't understand or appreciate how difficult it is to do it. And that's more specifically for anime. I really didn't realize until I started doing it, like how limiting it really is, like how you're able to perform a line because of the mouth flaps. It's pre-animated, you know, we're dubbing.
True.
And I'm like, sure, that'll restrict it to some extent, right? But you don't really notice until you go in yourself as an actor to record. You're like, man, this is hard. It really is hard because you're reading the script. You got the screen going on at the same time. There's like beeps in your ears. You got so many thoughts in your head about how you're going to perform the line. What's your motivation and all this other stuff. There's a lot of moving parts. And so it is hard. So I think we get enough credit. I think when people do a good job, a lot of people let them know, and they get their credit. But I don't think people who aren't actors appreciate how hard of a job it actually is. Cause, you know, I've read that before where someone's like, oh, I could just go in there. I'll just walk in and read the lines. You know, it's easy. It's like, dude, it's not that easy. I bet they would tear you apart. No, but, and I'm not saying like, woe is me, like, oh my God, my job is so difficult. But I'm just, you know, there is a lot of challenge to it and it requires a lot of skill. So, yeah, I think they do. I think they do get enough credit. I think directors don't get enough credit.
That's interesting. Because I feel just to kind of go off of what you were just saying with directors, and off of my opinion, this is just my opinion, why I feel like directors of anime probably don't get as much credit as a voice actor. It's because it's like already made. So it's kind of like you're just going in and hitting in the English dubbing, or if you can explain what a director's job is, if I'm not really understanding it correct.
Yeah, so they're just the director for a dub is just like a director for any other show, but kind of like you're saying, like obviously none of us made the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are adapting the show into English. And so the director has to work with an audio engineer and like the writers and the actors and producers, anybody working on the show. And when you're in the booth, they're the one guiding you and giving you context and adjusting your lines. And they're the ones that have like a vision for how they want the dub to sound, the product that they want to create. You're the actor and it's a collaborative experience, but like, let's say you do a take and you don't know how you feel about it. It's like, well, if the director likes it, wants to keep it, and it fits into their vision, then it's probably going to go in the show. And so they have a big say in like pretty much everything. And they're also a massive help as to like anytime you've heard a really good performance in an anime dub, sure, the actor does an amazing job. They're probably a great actor, but there's no way it would sound as good as it does if they didn't have a director in the studio with them where they just understand each other and they're both kind of working towards a common goal. And he or she's giving notes to the actor or actress, and it's like a back and forth. So usually when you have a show that's really good, it's because it's a good actor, actress, and a good director, and they communicate well, and they're collaborating, and they make the things. So, like in movies and TV shows on film now, I feel like the culture is. This didn't happen when I was younger. I feel like everybody knows who the directors are for like movies now. They're like, oh, like Christopher Nolan's directing this movie. It's got to be good. Like it's becoming more mainstream to sort of pay attention to the directors for like movies. But anime, like I feel like a lot of, your average Joe type of viewer at least has no idea, who directed the show. Cause it's kind of out of the way, you have to like do research to know, you know what I mean? So I feel like they're the ones that probably don't get enough credit. But maybe that's just my biased actor.
I agree with you on that because I feel like I never really hear about the directors of certain anime, and it'd be funny to me when people like voice actors bring up like another voice actor that's directing an anime. Like you just brought up the voice of Luffy being a director of My Hero, which I never knew that. Which that to me is very interesting to know that. But see, like I feel like they don't give you that information because they usually send out tweets to tell you like, oh, these are going to be the voice actors of these characters, but they never break down, oh, this is going to be the sound engineer, this is going to be the director and stuff like that. So
yeah, like you'll see a tweet, like for example, you see a tweet that's literally got like my face and Reagan Murdoch and or like Jill Harris, like everybody's face is up on screen and it's like the main cast of Remonster, right? But it's not like the director or the engineer's face is on the title card. If you go and you click the little hyperlink to go to like the Crunchyroll official forum or newsletter page to read like the full English dub staff list, then it'll say who's directing it. But like, how many people really do that? Like, come on. We just look at the pretty picture and we're like, oh, no way. I know that guy. Cool.
Oh, this anime is coming out next season? Okay. You know what I mean? I think that's what a lot of people
we're like, oh, that looks kind of neat. I'm going to check that out.
Okay. We're kind of getting down to the wind down point of the interview when we're getting down to our last 3 questions. For my next question, I basically wanted to ask you, are there any other projects that you are in besides voice acting? Are you active in like youth groups? Do you run your own voice acting school or something like that? Are you an influencer or a podcaster?
That's good questions. So not particularly. I used to teach group classes at Voices Carry. It's a acting studio in Texas. And now at the moment, I do coach, like do private lessons every now and again. For people who are like very beginner, just looking to get into it and get some theater knowledge and specifically voice acting knowledge and stuff. So I do that. I do offer that. If people are interested, they can always just shoot me an email. Other than that, I don't know any particular groups. I play guitar and piano, and I've been getting into bartending recently. I might learn how to bartend. I think that's kind of cool. I don't know. Stuff like that. I used to be a barista when I was in college, so I like making drinks, and now I'm moving on to cocktails. So I'm going to deck my house out. We'll see how it goes. But other than that, yeah, no, just voice acting.
Okay. Well, my next question is basically, do you have any advice for any aspiring voice actors out there looking to make a break into the industry? Like, do you have any recommendations for websites they should go to, places they should apply to? Should they go to school or anything like that?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a lot to it. So, just get acting experience before you get voice acting experience. So just like go to your local theater or take a class, whether it's like, on Zoom or in person, just take an acting class. Just learn how to act. If you feel like you can act, like if you've done like a play before or like, you feel like, I'm okay at acting, like maybe look into like voiceover classes. But literally just Google, I think it's literally, let me double check on my own computer while I'm here, how to become a voice actor. I think there's an entire website. Yeah, it's iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. And it says starting from zero, and it will literally tell you what is pretty much the exactly correct step-to-step little process of like, get training, get equipment, get a demo, start looking for agents, start auditioning, all that stuff. And that'll give you a nice step-by-step process. What my advice is that I know people that have started working for Nickelodeon in 2 months of looking into doing this stuff. And I know people who didn't get a professional gig doing this for 6 years. So it's a very non-linear path. It's a journey. You have to really enjoy doing it and want to do it if you do it. So I really urge people to do it because you just want to do it. It fulfills you, not because of money or fame or anything like that. And just be as self-aware as possible. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier, where we're balancing being modest but giving yourself credit when it's due. Like,
True.
Learn and improve the skill set of being able to be honest with yourself. It's like when I go in the booth and I do a take for an audition, there are times where I'm like, that felt really good. And there's plenty of times where I play it back and go, man, that sucked. And being self-aware like that will help you get better because you can direct yourself when other people aren't around. So just try and be as self-aware as possible. Be patient and be honest. So,
okay.
Yeah, those are my advice.
So being like critical of yourself, you think that's important?
I think I don't even think it's important. I think being self-critical as an artist is necessary. Because if, let's say you audition and somebody just goes like, you weren't good enough. And you go like, sure I am. It's like, well, it's not up to you. And if you think you're good enough, then you'll never get better, right?
True.
If I was good enough to get that, and maybe you were, like the point is not to beat yourself up over it, but to think like, how could I be better? Because you could always be better. And to not just don't get an ego.
And for my last question is basically, what ambitions or goals do you have yet to fulfill in the field of voice acting?
We definitely hit a milestone this year with Remonster. That was very cool. I'm still
Was being a main character.
Yeah, it still doesn't feel real. It's crazy, but probably being on like a cable TV cartoon, and then I don't know, like that, and then just like a movie. I feel like I've done like a pretty decent, like I've done some commercials. I feel like I've played like a main antagonist and like a main protagonist now in like animes. You know, I've played like principal cast characters in like video games and stuff, but it's like cable TV or like an animated movie. Like those are super cool, and I would like to do those. It's also the type of animation I haven't gotten to do yet, which is you just have like a script in your hand. They haven't animated it yet, so you could just do whatever you want with that script, you know? That sounds awesome. So I would love to do that.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool. That basically ends our interview. I have one last segment that I've been throwing in lately. Is basically if you have a question for me or for another voice actor that may come on.
Okay. What's the hardest, and this goes to other people as well. What's the hardest you've ever cried in like watching an anime? Like, do you remember what show or specifically what scene it was? Because I remember mine.
Dang, this is actually I have a one in my head. I just can't think of the name of the woman. I gotta look it up a little bit real quick.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, here it goes. It's Kotaro Lives Alone. This anime,
yeah. Okay. What do you remember? What scene it was?
I can't remember exactly what scene. I remember they were basically they were kind of like just talking about his life and him being a kid and everything. And it was a part when he was talking about like eating tissue paper. Yeah, that's what it was. It was talking about when he was talking about eating tissue paper. And he kept making reference to like this certain brand being like really good. And then they came to a point where they were talking about like it was someone had recently died in the anime, and it was a news part. And they were basically saying that he had basically been abandoned at home, and the only thing he was eating was newspaper. And it just made you do a whole think about the whole situation and everything. And I feel like that was probably like the only time I've ever probably had a few tear up moments.
Oh man, it depends. I don't really cry from a lot of stuff, but if it's like a slow burn, like the last episode or, romantic, I'll cry my eyes out. So like Angel Beats is my answer. There's an anime called Angel Beats. It's kind of older. I think it released in like 2010, and the main character and then the girl named Kanade. If you know, the last episode, I almost puked. I cried so hard. I almost threw up. It's I don't even want to spoil it for people, because if you haven't watched it, you should watch it.
I'm definitely going to have to watch it now, because that sounds interesting.
Because it's about like the afterlife, like fulfilling people's dreams, like that they didn't get to do when they died. And then now they're like, and then it's really emotional. So, oh my God, I cried my eyes out watching that. Anyway.
And with that, we end today's episode. I want to thank my guests for coming on and chatting it up with me. I had a lot of fun, learned so much more about the industry of voice acting, and hopefully you listeners did too. Before we close out, I just want to allow my guest the opportunity to plug himself and tell the audience where they can find you. So basically tell us your social media and everything and stuff like that.
Guys, you can find me on Twitter. I'm not going to call it X because that's weird. Instagram and other stuff at Letourneau VA. My last name is super French and super weird, so good luck spelling that. But if you wanted to just Google like Sean voice actor Texas, I should also pop up too, so you can Google that. So yeah.
And I'll also be posting his links and stuff below, so hopefully that'll make it easier for you guys.
Appreciate that.
And with that, I just want to say, peace!